Okay.
Okay, so if we pitch our airplane forward or up, we're going to be manipulating our four forces. So say we go down, say we pitch our nose down, and we'll be at a 500 foot per minute descent. So do you see this
Mhm.
kind of red arrow and this red arrow right here?
Yep.
So every time, whether we move our airplane's nose up or down, that black arrow pointed straight from the bottom, which is it represents our weight, it will always act down towards the earth, right?
Okay.
So if we pitch down our nose forward, now that black arrow is kind of acting on a forward angle to our plane rather than straight down when we're level. See how it's straight down,
Mhm.
level. And then if we pitch forward, now that angle kind of decreases between our thrust and our weight, right?
Mhm.
So now we have our thrust working to push us forward, but we also have our weight kind of dragging us down and forward.
Okay.
So that's why if we just pitched our nose forward, we'll just speed up really quick, right?
Mhm.
But if we pull our power backwards, then we'll be able to have a steady state climb at around 500 feet per minute.
Okay.
And our airspeed doesn't build up as much.
Okay.
So does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah, so it almost seems to me that in general, I noticed that a lot of times when you want to increase airspeed, it's a matter of pitching the nose down a little bit and slowing down and you pitch it up, whatever you're, I guess especially like in a descent or even a climb actually.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think what I'm trying to process is the connection between the pitch of the plane and the use of the throttle to give it more power. Like I remember reading that like you're in a if you're in a descent, like and you need to speed up, you might or you want to level off or something like that, you increase the power and that'll automatically pitch the nose up a little bit or something and you kind of can level off at a lower altitude. Right. Okay.
Mhm.
So can you remind me this too? I was trying to think about carb heat. If I know that the carb heat has to be pulled either. I'm trying to remember, is it when I want to descend where I pull the carb heat or
You want to pull the carb heat when you're at a low RPM setting.
okay.
So when we descend, we generally put our airplane at a low RPM. So
Okay.
we'll turn on the carb heat for that.
Okay, so to descend, I turn on the carb heat. And what does it do? That heats up the carburetor?
Yes.
Okay. Um and I slow the RPM down. Okay, and then I pitch down to try to okay, got it. Okay.
And what you said earlier about how if you push that, say you're descending and you push that throttle forward, the nose will kind of lift up by itself. That it makes sense because if we want to descend, I remember showing you sometimes how when we pull that power out when we're level and we want to descend, when we start pulling that power out, the nose just automatically wants to drop, right?
Mhm.
And then if we climb, it's just the opposite. So do you remember feeling those kind of sensations or
Mhm.
seeing those characteristics?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, yeah. So it almost seems like when you're descending, the nose wants to go down. So you got to pull that yoke back to get straight and level. So you reduce your vertical speed that you're declining. So I guess 500 feet per second, or is that right? Is it per
500 feet per minute.
Per minute? Sorry. And then when you're ascending, so I'm thinking like if I'm low and we're at 1600 RPM or 1500 feet or something like that, then it's like we turn off the carb heat, we're hitting the throttle, and the plane automatically wants to go up. And it seemed like, so I was controlling that climb by kind of pushing the yoke forward a little bit, right? So it doesn't go up too fast or something like that. Is that kind of?
Yeah, because if we start climbing, our airspeed starts to slow down if we pitch up too much.
Okay.
So you're just preventing that airspeed from getting too slow.
And if it gets too slow and we're pitched up, we risk a stall. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was really interested in like the whole conversation about angle of attack, and sort of, and it almost seems like when you land, is it common to have a stall warning when you land?
Yeah, that's what you want, really.
Really?
You want to just be right above, like a foot above the ground, and just stall the airplane.
Okay, got it. And so a stall, I mean, I know, I mean, when I think about stall, I assume that what that means, the engine stops, or what exactly is a stall, like technically speaking?
Let's get through four forces and then how
Sorry.
lift is created, and then we'll get into stalls.
Okay.
Sounds
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to get
no
ahead.
worries. No worries. So concerning weight, if we're in a climb and start pitching up, now that weight factor, that vector pointed down, is acting in a downward or rearward component.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How it moves, how the angle between drag and weight becomes smaller as we keep pitching up.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of get a visualization of how that weight kind of acts rearward. So when we're in a climb, we're fighting drag and a little bit of our weight.
Okay.
And that's why we need that extra power. That's why we want full power, so we can get as much thrust out of the engine and hold a nice airspeed for our climbs.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Is there like a standard RPM that you aim for when you're trying to do a climb?
Just max RPM.
Just
So
max.
what that means is we just push the throttle all the way forward to, it's called the firewall, or the instrument panel, that forward panel in front of us in the cockpit. When we're doing something like a takeoff, we look for max RPM, and that would be in our pilot operating handbook. So, and it's different for every airplane, kind of. It depends on the type of propeller and engine they have. So in the one we've been flying, I think it was uniform, the max RPM is usually around 2300.
Really? Okay.
Just on takeoff, and then when we're climbing, it might be a little higher.
Okay.
So
okay, got it.
Cool. So do you remember kind of, let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing. Do you remember the components of a wing?
Well, okay. So when I think about a wing, I think about the ailerons, the flaps, the wing cord. I know that the gasoline is in the wing. That's all I can think of.
Cool. No, that's right. Yeah.
And then on the left side, there's the pitot tube that gives you wait, don't tell me. Is that the stall? No, that's not the stall indicator. What, the pitot tube, does it give me altitude or something like that? Or
it gives airspeed.
Airspeed. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, you had that, you mentioned like the leading edge. I'll just write LE. I'll just kind of abbreviate it because it's hard to write on my
Sure.
laptop.
Oh yeah, no problem.
And then you said so we have the trailing edge, T. And then you mentioned a chord line, right?
Mhm.
That line that connects the leading edge to the trailing edge.
Okay.
So that'll be kind of important when we talk about stalls.
Okay.
And then up here we have this curvature of the top wing. And this curvature is called the camber.
Okay. CAMBER.
CAMBER. Yep. So I put UC for upper camber. And then the bottom curvature would be the lower camber of the wing.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So do you remember Bernoulli's force?
Yeah.
Bernoulli's principle?
It has to do with the pressure, the air pressure, I believe. That when the air is sped up, it reduces pressure, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the difference of pressure between the under part of the wing and the upper part of the wing that causes the lift. And I think it isn't tell me if I'm wrong. Was it like the higher pressure beneath the wing that causes the lift, or is it the lighter pressure at the top, or is it like just a combination of both?
Okay, yeah, so you had it right. So say we had a pressure of like 5 here, and then the air goes through it and it speeds up in this venturi, and it speeds up, and then the pressure would be lower. So let's write 2 there. And then when it exits, it'd be 5 again. So that's right. When air speeds up, we're going to get a lower pressure. And this, if you could, it kind of helped me remember it a little bit better. If you look at the venturi tube like that, kind of looks like a kind of a bad wing, but it still looks like a wing a little bit.
Right.
So if we have our wing, we have the area of low pressure on top, and then area of high pressure on the bottom.
Okay.
So do you know why the air travels faster over the top?
I thought it was just the curvature of the wing or something. Like the shape of the wing can cause it speeds up the air at the top. Is that right? Or
Yeah. Yep. Because of the curvature or camber of the wing. A lot of people are taught that say there's 2 air molecules. Say there's 2 air molecules and they hit this wing and they separate on the top and bottom, and the top has a larger distance to travel than the lower part of the wing. So this molecule would speed up quicker to meet up with the air that got split up at the beginning.
Wow.
So that's what everyone teaches. It's very popular bit of knowledge. It's kind of a dumbed down version of how to explain why the air travels faster on the top. But so that's how pretty much the majority of people are taught, or at least used to be taught, but now it's kind of been changing a little bit. Let's see. Can you see my screen moving to YouTube?
I see the wing on the screen. I didn't see anything change.
Oh, the
Did you,
wing that I drew?
yeah, did you change put something else up?
Yeah, I'll just reshare that. Give me 1 second. Um,
Yeah, take your time.
so if we look at this video from Cambridge University, it shows how air flows over the wing.
Hmm.
And it'll show you visually how the air is moving faster over the top than the bottom. Um, and it's not because even though everyone is taught the same way, like I was taught the way how, okay, there's two particles of air and they get split and they need to
Yeah,
meet back at each other.
yeah,
So
that doesn't make any sense to me.
I
So
know. Yeah.
yeah.
Can you
is generated because the
can you
flow
hear
moving on
what
the
it's
top
saying?
surface has a longer
Yep, sure
distance
can.
to travel and therefore needs to go faster. This common explanation is actually wrong. This video shows that the air on the top does move faster, but it doesn't reach the end of the wing at the same time as the air along the bottom. Here we use smoke to visualize the streamlines around an airfoil. We can pause the smoke by briefly interrupting the supply. This gives us lines that travel through the flow, as we can see here. And if we now slow the video down, you can follow those lines, and that gives you an idea of how fast the flow is in different parts of the airflow. Here you can see it speed up as it approaches the airfoil, and it moves faster over the top compared to the bottom. You can see that it reaches the end on the upper surface much earlier than it does on the lower surface. In fact, by the time it reaches the end on the lower surface, the flow's already gone a long way past on the upper surface. This shows very clearly that the flow doesn't take the same amount of time to reach the end of the wing.
Okay, so this is one of the things. So your pilot, you don't have to know why it moves faster over the top of the wing. It can move slower on the bottom of the wing for, like, what I know or what I've done research on. There's one reason why it moves slower is that this stream of air right here hitting the bottom, it gets blocked by the wing and then has to change directions, which slows it down initially. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, there's, I forget exactly the terminology, but when the air flows over the top of the wing with the curve, with the specific curvature, there's some type of like low pressure that is created between the skin of the wing and the air moving over it, which sucks the air closer to the wing and down. So it's kind of like a suction that helps move it faster over the top of the wing.
Okay. Okay.
So that's how that works.
Wow.
So that's Bernoulli's principle.
Hmm.
Um,
I wonder if the Wright brothers knew all that when they put the first plane in the air.
maybe.
Yeah, one day, I don't know if you've ever seen any of this, but one time I watched a documentary where they talked about how the Wright brothers were pretty much like locked up in litigation for like decades, over like the design of the engine, and like, or the guy who had the best engines didn't want to work with the people that knew how to actually make the planes. So a lot of aviation was withheld because everything was in court and they were like suing each other, and it was kind of a big mess.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd look it up. I think that I'm not sure, but I wonder if like war kind of sped that up, because then the government steps in and says, screw your lawsuits and your patents. Like, we need this for the military. And the next thing you know, aviation advances.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely was sped up because of war, for sure.
Yeah. War kind of speeds up everything, doesn't it?
Sadly. Okay, so Bernoulli's principle, and then there's also, why does a wing create lift? There's Newton's third law. So for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. So you could think that the wing is deflecting air downwards. So when that air hits the bottom of the wing, it's deflecting it downwards, right? It's stopping its motion. So it deflects it downwards, which creates an opposite and equal force op. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
So if you put your hand out the window when you're driving and you go like this, it's going to move up and backwards, right? Mainly because not of Bernoulli's force, but because of Newton's third law.
Right.
There's just so much air hitting the bottom that you're deflecting downwards. That's causing that equal opposite reaction that pushes your hand up.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it almost. I mean, it's such a powerful universal principle because it basically says, like, you know, to me, it says when you get all this resistance, you're gonna see another effect of that, right? Like if I go to the gym and I'm facing all this resistance from the weights, I'm gonna be stronger, and you know, my strength will elevate because I'm dealing with the resistance that's coming from this pressure that I'm putting on myself. You know,
Mhm.
kind of like a rule that applies to life. You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Okay.
Write it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Newton's third law. I'll write that down.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. Talk about lift. Okay. Now, you've heard of drag, right?
Yeah. That's in the back that's the opposite of thrust. Right.
Yeah. Do you know the types of drag?
Um, I remember there was more than one type, but I don't know what they are. I can't remember offhand.
Okay. So there's two main types of drag. There's parasite drag and then induced drag.
Okay. Parasite drag and induced drag. Okay.
So here's a page from the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge.
Yeah.
Chapter 5. And it has, I think it's called the basics of aerodynamics of flight. So it goes over, it's 51 pages of just pure info about aerodynamics. So concerning drag, we have the parasite drag and then induced drag. So then we have 3 different types of parasite drag. So we have form drag, and that's just dependent on the shape of the airplane flowing through the air or something flowing through the air.
Okay.
So you can see here on this figure how these different shapes have less and less drag as we get down, as we get lower. See how the air eddies. It's called eddying, where it kind of creates a turbulent circle, and it gets less and less as the object gets more aerodynamic.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Cool.
Cool.
So when it gets so the bottom one is more likely to sort of do what airplanes do, right? Whereas the top one would be like a terrible airplane because of what it does to the wind.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, or you can look at it in a way where some airplanes, like the airplanes we have, they have a wheel, so it looks like this. This is what the wheel would look like flying through the air, creating all these little forms of drag for us to fight.
Interesting. Okay. Wow.
Can you see my Google search?
Yep.
Okay. So there's these things called wheel fairings, and they look like these. They're just little aerodynamic casings for airplanes' wheels. So they're a lot more aerodynamic than just having that wheel fly through the air like we do.
Okay. Oh, got it.
So instead of having this type of drag, they'll have less drag because they have those wheel fairings.
Okay. Almost like it reminds me of those things that skaters wear on their head. You know, or cyclists. You ever see those?
Yeah.
Aerodynamically, yeah.
Yep. Then we have interference drag, and that's just how the airplane is made. So interference drag is when there are two pieces of an aircraft that are molded together. So like a wing root, this part of an airplane. You have air that's gonna be getting separated or flowing nicely along the fuselage, and then it just has to separate along the wing route, which will cause drag. Makes sense? Okay, and then we have skin friction drag, which is it just refers to the skin of the aircraft you use. So our airplanes are made of metal. So those will have less drag than an airplane with just a felt covering along the wings.
Okay.
And even metal will have impurities. So you see it, to us, it looks flat, but on a microscopic level, all these little bumps and ridges on it will cause some type of drag.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the three types of drag. Let's switch back to here.
Can we hold for 1 second? I gotta run to the bathroom real quick. I hope it's okay. I'll be right back. Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so we have parasite drag, and then the second type of drag we can talk about is induced drag.
Okay.
You remember anything about induced drag and how it tip vortices?
Well, I don't remember hearing about it, but I'm gonna guess that maybe an induced drag is something that you actually cause by something you're doing with the plane. Would that be accurate? Like maybe flying a certain way, or it sounds like the other one, parasite drag, seems to be built around, you mentioned form, interference, and skin. Seems like all that's connected to the design of the plane. So I'm wondering, is induced drag sort of like something that I can actually control as a pilot, or what do you say?
Yeah, in a way. Induced drag is, you're always going to have it. It's a byproduct of lift. So whenever we're creating lift with the airplane, we're going to have some form of induced drag.
Okay.
Have you ever seen an airplane video of an airplane with wingtip vortices like these,
Um,
where they have circles going off their wingtips?
the only ones I recall were was the section in Sporties where they were talking about being really careful about flying near big planes, and they can cause the vortex that can affect a light, the lighter aircraft.
Okay. Yep. So that's something we'll be talking about when we're going to be talking about precautions when it comes into takeoffs and landings.
Okay.
So yeah, this is what the wingtip vortices look like.
Wow. And the planes just do that like constantly, or just when they're taking off?
Constantly.
Okay.
It'll be bigger when they're slower.
Okay.
So when they're taking off and landing.
Wow. And that's a type of induced drag?
Yep. That's induced drag. So how it occurs is, let's see here. Okay, so we have our airplane here. And we have the wings. So we're facing the front of the airplane. Does that look all right to you?
Yes.
Okay. So we have this area of high pressure and then area of low pressure. Right? So this air under the airplane, it's high pressure and it wants to go to low pressure, right?
Okay.
So what it's going to do, it's going to travel around the wingtip up and over the wing to the area of lower pressure.
Okay.
So it'll go like, it'll make that circle.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, what happens when it does that is, in a perfect world, this whole wing is creating lift for us. It's all low pressure. The air's flowing smoothly over the wing at all sections of it, from this part to the end. But what happens with these wingtip vortices coming around to the top, it's blocking off this portion of smooth airflow over the wing. So this little portion of the wing can't create perfect lift like the rest of it, which induces drag.
Okay. So the lift from the wingtip is impacted by the vortices,
Yes.
and it causes induced drag.
Yes.
Got it.
And then, the airplane's flying through this air, and then this air, as it comes over, it is also traveling from the front part to the back portion of the wing. And that's where it gets its swirly motion effect. It looks like it's coming out of the wingtips as the airplane passes through. So it looks like that. So that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there anything special to know about that induced drag, or it's just something that just requires more power to overcome it, or?
Yes. So concerning these types of drags, it's in this one. No, it's in this one. Whoops. We have a graph, I think right here, that you can see it more visually. So concerning drag regarding our airspeed, as our airspeed increases, induced drag is going to decrease. But as our airspeed increases, parasite drag increases.
Interesting.
And if you look at this curvature, we get a curve called total drag. This dotted blue line.
Right.
And right here, we have our minimum drag.
Wow. Okay, so you think that by increasing your airspeed, you're going to reduce the drag, but the problem is that the parasitic drag is outweighing the induced. The gain is and the loss are balancing, or not even balancing, but they're balancing in a negative way, where you're actually getting more drag by speeding up. Okay.
Yeah. Like there comes a point where we keep increasing our airspeed and our drag decreases, and then starts increasing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. So how do you know what that optimal airspeed is? Is that in the flight manual or something, or? That's
a great question. Let me cut you off, but I'm going to put a pin in that and then just show you one more thing. Wingtips or winglets. Whoops. Because of wingtip vortices and induced drag, this is why airplanes have these wingtips right here in the edges of their wings, and it moves the wingtip vortices away from their wings.
Oh, okay.
Like the difference from here, from like this one to having a winglet. So yeah, so it decreases the effect that wingtip vortices have on the airplane.
Do most planes have the tips, or is that, when I go to the air, I don't recall noticing
most
that.
commercial airliners have winglets like this. Planes like us, we don't have those because it's not worth it. The whole aviation industry is based on like 1 to 3% margin. So this little winglet saves us the smallest bit of money, but they're always flying every day, almost throughout the year. So in the long run, it saves them money. But for a general aviation plane like us, it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
Okay.
Now, is there like an aviators conference that you go to every year or something?
An aviators conference.
Yeah, like is there any conference that all the pilots go to?
There are different types of conferences that you can go to. There's like flight instructor conferences that you can go to. There's online webinars through the FAA that you can attend, and there's one every month. There's a what's it called? A membership called the AOPA, and they'll have different types of training for you, and then they'll have different types of conferences at air shows around the US. So
thanks. Yeah, in case I hadn't told you, I'm really enjoying this stuff. This is a lot of fun. So yeah, and finally my math background is coming in handy.
Yeah. All right. So here we have a graph of our coefficients of lift and our lift drag ratios. And we, what? And then on our x-axis, we have is it our x? Yeah,
Yeah, angle of attack.
we have our angle of attack. So if we just focus on this left line, or red line, it's CL, and this is our coefficient of lift, okay?
Mhm.
So this is telling us how much lift we have on the airplane. And as you can see, so if we increase our angle of attack, we can increase our lift. Do you remember what our angle of attack is?
Yeah, it's the angle between the nose of the plane and what direction the plane is going, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
It's the angle between our chord line
Chord line and
and then the relative wind. So
relative wind.
yeah,
Really? I thought it was for
It's-
some reason I thought it was connected to which direction the plane was going. Like if I'm going down, it's easier to increase my angle of attack than if I'm going up. Is that
yeah. Relative wind is just the simple way of thinking it is just which direction the air is moving over the airplane. So it's which direction we're moving.
okay.
So
Got it.
you have the right concept in your mind. Just the word, the official word is the relative wind.
Got it. Okay.
Right. Okay, so and as we increase our angle of attack, you can see that our lift increases. Right. Cool. And then there comes a point where we have our max center of lift or coefficient of lift. And then after that, it drops off.
Okay. And that's because your angle of attack's gotten so high that you've stalled.
Yes. Yeah. So which would be the critical angle of attack.
Okay.
So that's what it looks like on a graph. Next, we have our lift to drag. We have our coefficient of drag here, which is in the orange.
Mhm.
And then in the green, we have our lift to drag ratio. So if we look at around 6 degrees of the angle of attack, we have our lift to drag, our maximum lift to drag ratio. So anything below that will have more drag or more lift. And then anything after that, will have more drag, the more lift we take on.
Okay.
So this is the most, at this angle of attack, this is the maximum lift we can get out of the airplane without increasing our drag too much.
Okay. Got it.
So that kind of went to your question that you had earlier about where do we know, do you know where we can get down to this minimum drag point in this graph? Well, it's the same thing as our lift to drag ratio. So this point in our graph is called our best glide speed, which we can find in our POH actually.
Okay.
And it's at 65 knots. So say we have an engine failure, we're going to stay at 65 knots because that number gives us our maximum lift that we can get out of the aircraft.
Okay.
So we'll be able to glide further than if we were at 60 knots or 75 knots.
Okay. Got it.
So that all makes sense to you?
Yeah. So 65 knots, that maximizes that ratio of like how the distance you travel for every I think every 1,000 feet or something, or every foot of altitude or something like that. Like there's a ratio of distance to altitude, like a triangle.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so that all makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we, so do you want to talk about stalls? Do you have questions specifically about stalls that I can answer that you want answered? We can also touch on forces in a turn and also why we need, so the use of rudder in like turns and climbs.
Well, we can cover both. Maybe we start with stalls. I can tell you what I think I know.
Okay.
You know, I can. I humbly submit that I may end up sounding stupid, but um, I went through the content on stalls, and I got this sense that a lot of it relates to the angle of attack, and that let's think here. So I remember noticing that the stall warning would go off on landings, and that was a good thing. And if you're, I remember just kind of paying attention to landings, and they were talking about sort of maintaining the right angle of attack, and then using the power. I think it was, I don't remember if it was like increasing the RPM. I just remember, I think the content I was going through was related to the landings, and like sort of using the flaps, and I was sort of coordinating that with figuring out how to get into the traffic pattern, and how to sort of land properly, and I remember feeling like there was a lot of variables to think about, and I remember angle of attack and stalling was kind of like part of that conversation too. When that happens, I just keep listening to it over and over and over again, hoping that at some point it all kind of makes sense. So maybe, I guess you can just help me just, I guess, generally understand why stalling is such an important part of the training process. Just we can start from there.
Okay. All right. So we talked about this, okay, I'll just answer your question first. So why are stalls important to training? They're important to our training as pilots because if we don't know how to recover from them, if you get yourself into one in the real world, you might be freaked out and you won't know how to recover.
Hmm.
During our training, we'll be putting you into a power on and power off stalls multiple times, so you can get that muscle memory down on how to recover from a stall, and
Okay.
you get a sense of what it feels like. That way, if you do encounter it in the real world, you'll know how to recover from it.
Okay.
During landing, while we're in that landing pattern, we'll be at a slow airspeed and there's a lot going on. So if you get distracted or you're just fixated on not getting blown too far away from the runway and you don't watch your airspeed and you get too slow, you can induce a stall.
Okay.
Stalls in traffic patterns are a lot more dangerous too, because you're a lot lower to the ground.
Mhm.
And a lot of times there's these stalls called base to final stalls. So in our traffic pattern, we'll turn we'll make a left turn in our last turn to get centered up with the runway before landing.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, because we'll be pretty slow by then, some people will stall during that turn.
Okay.
If you stall during a turn, you can induce a spin, especially if you don't know how to recover properly from a spin. It can get very dangerous. So a lot of a lot of people have just crashed planes, have died from stalls low to the ground, and things like that. And it's nothing to be afraid of because we will practice them a lot. You'll practice them so much, and you will have to do that in front of the examiner at the end for your test
Okay.
and show that you can recover from stalls. If you think about it, you'll have so many hours by the time you get your private license. You'll be landing and doing takeoffs. You have the stall horn to warn you.
Mm-hmm.
You should be, I feel like you'll be diligent enough by then to not get too slow. But if you do, there's always the stall horn. And if worst comes to worst, if you do stall, you should know how to recover it by then. So like, I'm not going to send you off solo flying if you don't know the process of recovering from a stall.
Got it.
So
Okay.
that's why they're important.
Okay.
And they're fun. I think they're fun.
Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah. So I'm all ears. I did go through a lot of the material and stalls and but I like hearing it also from your perspective, so I can really try to re-understand it in the right way. So it seems like speed and angle of attack are important in whether you stall or not. And it seemed like I recall something that said that if you do hit a stall, you reduce your angle of attack, maybe pick up your airspeed a little bit. So would the throttle be involved in that too, or would it just be a matter of changing the angle?
We stall because we exceed a critical angle of attack.
Okay.
So the biggest thing to get out, or the number one thing to do to get out of a stall would be to reduce your angle of attack.
Okay.
Because if you add power, you can still stay in that stall if you don't reduce your angle of attack.
And I guess and also increasing the power would automatically tip the nose up, which wouldn't that increase the angle of attack? Or
Yes.
so maybe it's not so much a matter of the throttle, it's really a matter of lowering the nose. So
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we will go over slow flight first, but then we'll do stalls and we'll have a separate discussion on the full process of how we get into a stall and how to get out of it. And we'll go through the steps so you can get those down, and then we'll start doing those in the airplane.
Okay.
So does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I really want to practice this a lot. And I guess I was curious about something like, so when most of your students, when they get their private pilot's license, what do they tend to do next? Like besides flying planes, I mean, do they go for instrument certifications, or like what do they do?
Some will go to Lewis University and just start their college career with their private license and then go through their program. So they already are like a step ahead. Some people will get their instrument rating, which is highly recommended in the general aviation community. Some people will fly for a couple years first and then work on their instrument. Some people will buy a plane they like and then start flying around. But in the end, it's just your private license is a license to learn. So the majority of students will keep learning as they go along, whether it be getting their instrument license, or if they're not doing that, they'll read articles or get some magazines monthly that talk about what's going on in the aviation industry, going to seminars or things like that.
Okay. Now the instrument rating, that lets you fly what in bad weather or something like that, where you can fly above the weather.
Yeah, it lets you fly in clouds. So say clouds are low, you can take off and fly through the clouds. And when you do that, you can't see outside and you have no visual reference. So you have to just fly by instruments,
Hmm.
by referencing those. And that's why it's called the instrument license.
Okay, and that's safe to do in the Cessna.
And that's what?
That's safe to do even in the plane that we practice in, the 172.
Yep. I got my, well, I guess it wasn't in this 172, but I've flown instrument in the 172. And that's what I'll train for my CFII so I can teach instrument flying. So
Oh, CFII. Now, what is that? Oh, what? Go ahead.
yeah,
Instrument.
certified flight instructing and then instrument rating.
Oh, so that's like your next step as a
Yeah.
flight instructor.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Okay, so okay, well, I'll ask more of those questions later. I'm just really curious about just the whole process and stuff. Okay, so did you want to? If you want to, we can go back to stalls or
Okay.
whatever's next. Yeah.
Um, let's see. I don't know. So stalls, we kind of hit the main parts of it where we have a specific critical angle of attack, and if we exceed that, we lose lift, and the nose will drop. There's also, so when we do a stall, like we'll get super slow concerning our airspeed and then induce our stall. But I'll also be able to show you an accelerated stall where we'll stall the airplane at 80 knots or 75 knots to show you that you can stall at any airspeed. What matters is just that critical angle of attack.
Okay. Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. So generally speaking, recovering from a stall pretty much comes down to changing the angle of attack. That's pretty much the main thing. Is there more to it?
That's the main thing. I mean, you'd recover, so you'd reduce the angle of attack and then add power and climb because you're simulating a stall low to the ground. So you'll recover, add power, and then start climbing.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll simulate stalls where we're going into land. So we'll have flaps in. So we'll recover, get that, reduce the angle, add full power, and then start putting the flaps up.
Okay.
So all of that, kind of like our last flight, you could get a feel for how when we added flaps, the airplane kind of would lift up a little bit. So you'd have to release some of that pressure on the control wheel to maintain level flight. And then when we went full power with those flaps in and we started taking those flaps out, the airplane's nose would drop a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So when we're recovering from a stall, the airplanes will drop and then we'll reduce the angle of attack and then we'll start climbing and then we'll start taking out the flaps. So if we're low to the ground, we don't want to drop the nose because we take out flaps. So when we take out the flaps, we want to pull back on the control wheel to maintain a positive climb.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay.
Good?
Yep.
All right. Do you remember the 4 turning tendencies?
The 4 turning tendencies. You mean like bankroll, straight and level flight, pitch, like, and then pitch down and up? That's what
It's like torque reaction and gyroscopic precession, and then
oh,
P factor.
gosh, I don't remember that from the
Okay,
script.
sounds good. First we'll talk about. I'm gonna grab a pen.
Okay.
First we'll talk about turns and rudder. Okay.
Okay.
So when we're in a turn, we have adverse yaw, right?
Mhm.
And how do we turn? Do you know what happens to our four forces?
Well, let's see. For turning, I guess you're banking, and I think there's something that has something. Is it something about the? I know that it's pulling the plane down, so the weight is a little heavier. So you need to pull back on the yoke to keep the plane level, and then you need the left. If I'm going left, I need that left rudder because there's adverse yaw that's pulling it over in that direction. And I guess that must, I don't know if that's thrust that's doing that or what. But that's the way I understood it.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so say we have our airplane. Okay, and we have lift and weight. Okay. Okay, and then they're acting perpendicular to each other, or parallel, sorry. Now say we put our airplane into a bank. Okay. Now, when this happens,
Okay.
our vertical lift right here changes into a horizontal component of lift.
Okay.
So we'll have some lift pointed upwards, right? But we're also going to have a horizontal component of lift. In actuality, because our plane's angled, instead of having it straight up and down, it'll be more like this way. But to simplify it, we have a horizontal component of lift that that helps us actually turn. So when we're in level flight, we have just the horizontal component of lift. But when we bank our airplane, we're changing, or we're directing some of this lift that was vertical into a horizontal component.
Okay.
And that's why we lose that's why we have to pull back on the control wheel, because some of this vertical component of lift that we had is now being directed to the side.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, cool. Now, when if we just if we start just banking our airplane, the nose will fall, right? Because we lose that lift.
Right.
So we have to pull back on the control wheel, and that really helps us turn a little bit.
Okay.
So we need a combination of that angle of bank and our elevator to actually perform a nice turn. If we move if we say we want to go into a left turn, so what do we do with our control wheel?
The left turn. I guess we turn left and we're pulling back.
Okay.
And
Wait, we'll stop there.
okay.
So what does rotating our control wheel to the left do?
Moves the ailerons. I guess is it the right aileron's up and the left one's down? Is that right?
Think about it whichever way your thumbs are pointed. So in this case to your left, and they're pointed upwards, that means the left ailerons will be up.
Oh, the left aileron's up. Okay, so the left aileron's up and the right aileron's down.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So can you kind of see how this right aileron's down?
Yep,
Okay, so if we go back to the example of you driving in your car and your hands out the window and you go like this, our hand goes straight up, right? Flies up, creates some lift. And then if we point it downwards, it's going to fall. So that's what happens to this right wing. The right aileron moves downward, which increases the lift.
Okay.
Which causes the airplane's wing to rotate.
Okay.
Because now there's more lift here than on this wing. And this wing actually goes down to decrease the lift, to help that airplane think.
Okay.
You following for
Yep.
now? Okay, cool. Now, if we picture our hand, if we're going out the window and we go like this, it moves up, but it also moves backwards, right? And if we think about it, if we increase lift, we're going to increase drag, right?
Yep.
So that's where that adverse yaw comes in.
Okay.
So if we have our airplane, this is like a top-down view from it, and we have the right aileron here, and it's rotating to the left. Okay. The nose gets pulled back a little bit because our right wing has more lift, which means more drag.
Okay.
And that's the adverse yaw.
So our right wing has more lift, which means more drag.
Yes.
Oh.
And that's why see where so if we're turning, it should look nice. It should be a nice equal turn, like this. It should be a nice turn like this. The airplane nose, I'll change the color. Here's the wing, here's the tail. The airplane's nose and tail should follow this line, right?
Okay.
But because of adverse yaw, the airplane would look more like this. Let's see. Kind of outside the turn, so this turn, the nose and the tail won't line up together. It's kind of like skidding through the air.
Yeah. I remember thinking about adverse yaw as almost like it's skidding, like as it's turning, it's kind of okay. Okay, so the left rudder fixes that. Got it.
Yep. Because that left rudder. So if we have our plane and we're where this aileron's this aileron has more lift. So it's going to rotate, and then it also has more drag because it has more lift. So it goes like this. So we need the rudder to fix it.
Okay. So the drag that comes from the lift of the right aileron ends up causing the plane to skid. Huh. Okay. So the drag, I guess, the skid is driven by the fact that the drag is like sort of hitting the tail or something, or
No,
because
it's just, remember you know how induced lift is just a byproduct, or induced drag is just a byproduct of lift. The more lift we have on this wing now, and so if we look at it in here, so if we're in a left-hand turn, our right wing has a lot more lift than our left wing. Now,
Okay.
because of induced drag, the right wing, because it has more lift, it's going to have a lot more drag than the left side of the wing.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So okay, that makes
which
sense.
which causes that nose to get pulled to the right, which
Okay.
we correct with our rudder.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I get it now.
Okay. So whenever we're moving that control wheel left or right, that's why we need to also be moving the rudder, because we're changing how much lift and drag is being created by those wings, and we need to stay coordinated.
Okay. Okay.
Which also what's your question?
Oh, I was gonna ask you, I had some trouble kind of getting my flight simulator set up the right way. I bought a yoke and the throttle set and also rudders, for my feet. And I thought that if I just plug them into Microsoft Flight Simulator, it would all be recognized and come through. But it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. Do you know anybody that knows like the way I could like give them some money? They could set up my flight simulator for me in my house.
I could ask one of my students for you. He has one. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
I'll
I'd
I'll
love.
try and ask around the airport to see if other people have experience with that.
Okay, that would be cool. Yeah, I and the Microsoft Flight Simulator program seems pretty cool. Like you can pick different planes and airports and all that. Um, but I even am curious, like if there's even better setups. Like I'd like something that's as realistic as possible. That's only less than a few $1,000s though. I don't want to spend like an insane amount of money, but something that's just like maybe like now I have a decent setup. Like I have the throttle and or not the throttle. I'm sorry, the yoke and the rudders, and it's like in front of my big screen, and I can kind of get the feel that way. But I'd like to be able to like really feel like I'm sitting, in the seat of a plane, and just really practice that way.
Mm, okay. Do you have a VR headset?
Um, I do have one. I do have one. Are there good programs for that?
I think I know my one student. I think he hooked up his VR headset to where he can do maneuvers and look to the left to like make sure he's circling around his point equally, stuff like that, or if he's practicing traffic patterns, so you don't have to use your mouse to drag your like POV to the left to look outside the left window of the airplane or anything like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I'm gonna look into that too. Yeah, I'd like something that just really gives me the feel of being in a plane, and
Mm.
then I could just spend a lot of time in there and really get comfortable with it. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm very you know, I'm I'm training my mind to get prepared for taking off and landing. I assume I don't know. Do other students have a little bit of like anxiety, when it comes to that, or
I think yes, but once they do it, I think takeoffs come a lot easier to students than landings. Landings are very tough, whereas takeoffs can be a lot easier. I think a lot of them just like trust me enough to take over if something's gonna go wrong. So it reduces their anxiousness a little bit. But a lot of them that I've had, they just want to get thrown into it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not a throw me in kind of person in the sense that I'm not afraid,
Okay.
like in my mind, if I really prepare, I get the confidence. It's like, let's do it, but I don't want to be thrown in if I'm not ready because I'm not dumb enough to. Think that I'm invincible, so
You got
but yeah, but I've been kind of going through that and really going through the information on the landings because it seems like there's a lot there in terms of the wind and and just even I'm trying to conceptualize the idea of approaching an airport that I've never been to and communicating, and getting into the traffic pattern and and then on top of that, dealing with the airplane itself and the landing conditions.
Mhm.
So but that's my goal, right? Like I'd love to be able to, go to a busy airport and get the traffic pattern, communicate properly, and land my plane. Is that something you feel confident doing? Like if you had to go to JFK or something, would you feel comfortable landing the Cessna at JFK?
I mean, yeah, it'd be annoying
Really?
to, like, land at JFK, I feel like, just because they're very busy. But I would feel comfortable going to an airport and landing if they're busy or anything like that. And that's kind of the steps we'll go through. You're gonna do these maneuvers, and then we're going to get you primed up concerning takeoffs and landings.
Okay.
Um, and then maybe towards the back end of your landings training, we might go to like Morris to give you a taste of what it's like to fly to another airport.
Okay.
That way, so then you get your landings and takeoffs and maneuvers down and traffic patterns down. And then we'll start focusing on going to from one airport to another and back to Joliet, and
Okay.
transitioning into their traffic patterns and landing and then taking off and leaving. And eventually once we get your takeoffs and landings down pat, you'll do your solo takeoffs and landings. And then once we get your navigation skills down and flying to other airports and handling that fine, you'll have to do, I think, 2 or 3 of those alone.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited about it. I
Yeah.
think that'll be fun. And yeah. I've been looking. I've gone to YouTube University a lot, and I've been watching stuff. And let me ask you, so as far as planes go, what's a turboprop plane, and how does that differ from what we have?
Okay. Let's see. That's a good one. Wonder if it's in here. Maybe I'll just.
Because I thought our plane was a turboprop. That since it had a propeller, it was.
No, so it's just a single engine prop plane. Turboprop plane, let's see. Diagram. So what that has, it has a turbine basically in the system. If we look at it,
And by the way, I don't see anything else on the screen.
oh, sorry.
I see the drawing of the plane, the advert shot that we had up.
Let's go to here. Let's see if they have some good. Okay. Cool. So there's in the turboprop planes, there's something called reverse flow. So what happens is that the air gets sucked in to the engine, but through the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be these compressor fans, just like in a jet, that compress the air. And then they get ignited and then go through another set of fans and then get blown out through the exhaust. So it's basically like a propeller strapped to a jet compressor.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
So it'll be a lot more powerful than just those 4-cylinder combustion engines that we fly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has the compressed air, and then it goes into the combustor, and then through that turbine fan that spins the propeller up front.
Okay.
Uh, so that's the general gist of that. Does that make sense? So there's like there is something called a service ceiling, where there's a maximum altitude that an airplane can go and still have lift.
Okay.
So compared to, if we compare a turboprop plane to just a regular single prop plane that we fly, it would have a higher service ceiling, so it can go up higher and go faster.
Okay. Interesting.
And then you'd need, so like you were saying, what do you do after your private license? If you want to fly something that's a turboprop, you would need a type rating, I believe, for a
Type rating.
specific one.
Okay.
So you just go and do some maneuvers and learn how to fly an airplane like that with an instructor, and then he'll endorse you for it, and then you can fly those.
What are you qualified to fly?
I'm qualified to fly single engine and multi-engine land planes as a commercial pilot or flight instructor. And I have my instrument rating.
Oh, okay. So the multi-engine, that's a rating too, right?
Yes.
So it's like a lot of different ratings, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so if I so like a turboprop, would you be able to fly one, or you'd have to go get another rating to fly one?
I would need to get endorsed, I believe.
Really? Okay.
Like, oh, turboprop rating. We could look up turboprop rating requirements. Type rating endorsed, act as pilot in command of any turbo jet powered aircraft. You also need a type rating endorsement to fly a turboprop that exceeds maximum takeoff weight of 1,200, 500 pounds. So, and then there's like online training courses, I'm guessing, that you can do. So flying yeah.
Wow, $1,795 for an online course? Or is that actually?
So
Oh,
it's if you go out, so it'd be what, 6 hours of ground school and then 1.5 hours of flying, and then they'll endorse you with your high altitude complex and high performance endorsement if
and you could get it in one day?
That's what it says.
Sheesh. So what would you have to have before you got? Would you have to have like a private pilot's license to even do that training, or do they need you like type?
You'd need your private at least.
Really? Okay. That's so cool. I'm so excited. This is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, it looks like our time's almost done, and I appreciate your time, man.
No problem.
If I want to schedule another, these lessons are really good. I'm gonna keep these notes and listen to our conversation. And if I want to set up another appointment, should I text you or?
Just text me
What
or
I-
call me, no matter what. If you wanna set up a day to fly too, we can look at that right now if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, let me see here. Today is the 17th. I know next Wednesday we're leaving out of town for Thanksgiving, but between now and then, you got any time between now and then?
Let's see.
Tomorrow's pretty open for me. Saturday morning I have something, but the Saturday afternoon or And Sunday's pretty wide open, so.
Okay. So I can fly. Do you want to fly just twice or once? What you feeling?
Um, well, maybe let's schedule the first one and
Okay.
then we
Yeah,
can
see how the weather
based
looks.
on. Yeah, yeah. And is there should we check the weather as we schedule or just schedule and
Um, we could. What we can also do is just schedule, because we can, if say we cancel again, what we could do is go over, have a Zoom call where we can talk about the slow flight maneuver and stalls,
okay.
because that's what we'll be doing next, those and ground reference maneuvers.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, so I guess I mean, did you have a day in mind? I mean, I could fly tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. It's up to you. Any day
Um,
up until Wednesday. Wednesday I can't because I gotta travel, but
okay.
I'm ready.
All right. I can do tomorrow at, let's see, at 11.
Well, okay, 11 I've got a meeting. 12, would that be doable?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. Let me see here. Oops. Let me put this in my phone. Okay, all right. Okay. Any day, anytime. I mean, I don't know if you take students over the weekend or not. Saturday or Sunday, would that work for you or?
Saturday I can do 1 p.m.
Okay, Saturday at 1. Cool. This is great. Awesome. And then maybe on Saturday I'll just, we can just set our next appointment. Sometimes I noticed that the last time we flew, I think about the last 20 minutes, I wanted to land, like I kind of, my body was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of tired now. And, and so I'm thinking like an hour in the air is a good amount of time for me. Yeah, I want to get I want to train myself to fly longer just because I know that once I become a pilot, I'm gonna have longer trips. But I think and I'm getting better with the motion sickness stuff. It hit me a little bit before, but I think I'm adjusting to that. And I also like these lessons too. Like this is really cool. Like I'm gonna look at that Bold Method website and everything. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So yeah, okay. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow then.
Yeah. You're getting, so did you say you're getting better with the motion sickness, but
Yeah.
your main thing is you're getting tired?
Not tired, like sleepy tired, just tired,
Mental?
like okay, I'm ready to land now. I don't know. I don't know if it's I wouldn't say it's boredom. It's not so much boredom. I don't know. For some reason, I like toward the end, I was like, okay, I've had enough airplane stuff for a while. I kind of want to do something else. And but like after a day or two, not like I look at stuff every day. Like I listen to the sporties videos every day and stuff. So it's like each day I kind of just recharge my battery. So it's almost like how I do everything else. Like even with my job, I enjoy it for a while. Then I'll be like, okay, I'm a little tired of this. I'm gonna do something else for a while. But then I jump right back into it. Or
Mhm.
like when I play Call of Duty with my friends. I don't know if you ever play that game. I don't know if you're a gamer or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so me and my buddies get online and play Call of Duty. And it's like when we first get on there, we're super excited and we're going in there just kicking butt and it's fun. After about an hour and a half, I'm like, all right, I'm bored. I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah. So you said you do play the games or you're a
I've
gamer?
I've I've played them in the past, not recently though. Sad.
Uh yeah, it's a lot. It's a good escape.
I want to, like, once I get more time, like have a better schedule on my hands, I want to get like a gaming PC and all that. So
Yeah. I like to try to mix it up with different things that are interesting. And right now, this is so cool. I appreciate everything. So So I guess tomorrow I'll see you at the airfield then, huh?
Yeah. Oh, and then concerning concerning ground lessons, do you have Venmo or anything like that?
Um, you know what? I don't have Venmo. I have Cash App, but I can get Venmo if you need me to.
Okay. Or you can just pay cash if that's easier, because what a lot of the instructors do for ground lessons is that uh, we won't charge 40 an hour, because a lot of that goes to insurance, or like 10% of that will go to insurance or something like that. So for ground lessons, I only charge $25 an hour.
Okay.
So it's a little cheaper. And that way it kind of encourages my students to meet up with me more so they can
Yeah.
learn more, and I can keep better track of where they're at knowledge wise. So
Yeah, that I like that a lot. Yeah, that definitely helps. And I'm downloading Venmo as we speak, so I can send the money through Venmo or Cash App, or I can pay you in cash when I see you tomorrow.
yeah,
It's up to you.
cash is fine too, as long as it's not a problem for you or anything, or too much of a hassle.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I really like working with you, I'm gonna be a newborn baby at this for a while. But like, just to share this, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I really want to buy a plane, like when I learned how to fly, and I'd love to get your guidance on how to pick one out. Like I like the Cessnas, but actually I like the Cirrus planes a little bit better, that lower wing.
They're cool.
Yeah, and and they're not insanely expensive. And so I really would like to. My longer term goal is to become a qualified pilot, but to also have a plane that I keep at the Joliet airfield and that I can use to go, maybe fly to see my family in Kentucky. Um, but I'd like your guidance or just anything I don't know. You know what I mean? People do those videos like 10 things I wish I'd known before I got my plane. I'd love like your insights so that I can minimize the number of mistakes I make along the way. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. In fact, maybe when I get it, maybe you could fly with me a few times or something, so
I have a lot of flight hours in the Cirrus planes too.
do you? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So
Yeah,
I'm
awesome.
pretty familiar with those.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Those are like a video game with all their glass cockpit avionics.
Really
Yeah, so
nice.
they're
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I think the one that I saw was the SR-22 that I thought was super cool.
Mhm.
And so I probably want to get one used. I don't want to buy anything brand new, cost too much. But yeah, so it's just your insights on that. As I proceed, I'll share with you what I'm doing, and then whatever you want to share. And I'll respect your time all the time. Like, so if I need your time to, like, if I say, oh, I'm gonna go look at a plane, you go with me, like I have no problem compensating you for your time.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds like a plan.
Well, thanks a lot, man. It's great to see you, Colin. I'll see you
Yeah, you
tomorrow.
too.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.